Do you remember Gina Rinehart, the woman from Australia, the richest woman in the world and the richest person in Australia, who basically asserted that anybody who wasn't rich just simply didn't want to work? Well, she's decided to go ahead and make things even worse and generate herself even more enemies. She's decided to declare that Australia's minimum wage is class warfare. In actuality, class warfare is poverty wages. The declaration or the fight to get minimum wages is the strike back against it. That's called a returning fire from someone who's already declared class war on you. Now, she made the argument that Australians should be given a minimum wage of $2 a day. We must be realistic, not just promote class warfare. Indeed, if we competed at the Olympic Games as sluggishly as we compete economically, there would be an outcry. The evidence is unarguable that Australia is indeed becoming too expensive and too uncompetitive to do export-oriented business. Africans want to work. Its workers are willing to work for less than $2 per day. Such statistics make me worry about this country's future. These standards that she considers class warfare, like the minimum wage, safety regulations, things like that, are part of what makes a country the first world, is the ability to have these things, or having fought the victories to have these things, so that people don't live in desperate poverty. That's the point of being in the first world, and is what makes the first world the first world. Now, this is part of the whole capitalist ideology, part of a common theme that runs through a lot of it, where everything is looked at in a vacuum, and that the various factors in an economy aren't taken in the context of all the things that they are going to affect. Each of these things are an isolated individual thing but don't interact with their surroundings. If you were to give Australians $2 a day minimum wage, the country would go bankrupt and the economy would collapse. If people made $2 a day, they would not be able to consume enough to keep the economy actually alive, because they would have literally no disposable income. In fact, if they really only made $2 a day, they would not even be able to afford enough food, and thus the workers would actually die. See, now this is what really would happen if you reduced people's salaries, their wages, to $2 a day. But this doesn't enter into their minds. They only see this as, oh, if we do this, it'll be more competitive with African labor. Yes, it literally would be more competitive with African labor. But then the people of Australia would be living like Africans and would have the same living standard as Africans. And if they had the same living standards of Africans, they wouldn't be able to consume to support the capitalist system at all. And thus the capitalist system would have tremendous negative effects brought against it as a result of this and would eventually collapse. They're not taking this into account. This is a horribly ridiculous position to hold, because it's a completely unsustainable position. It's just insane. I'm almost tempted to think that she's trolling at this point, because it's ridiculous. Now, as for her comment, if this were the Olympics, and people were competing, say, with hard work, like Olympians actually compete with, this woman would lose, and she would fall flat on her seemingly worthless face compared to the people who work in the mines that she owes. She needs to probably think about that the next time she tries to use the Olympics as a metaphor for something. Now, just to cut the video a little bit shorter, this idea that higher minimum wages has effect on employment levels, this is absolutely not true. In fact, it can be scientifically proven that this is not true, and there will be a link in the description for that as well.